Okay, so hopefully today you're going to leave as a noob and not a noob, and you can read those things right there and see what that means and why I'm saying that. So again, my first script was this really short script, and it emails the results of a form. You can literally get on that guy's page and copy and paste that. If you do a Google search for script to send form results to another email address, you will find that script right there. And that guy's name is like Agaj Arwal or something like that. His name starts with 2 A's, so that's the best I can do. This is where I'm at on scripting now, and this looks like a lot, but it's really just a lot of steps. It's not as complicated as it looks, and we'll take these pieces and break them down here a little bit later. So currently, the works in progress that I have right now, I'll kind of give you an idea of what these scripts or what these projects do. And I say these are my current works in progress because literally, as I mentioned to those of you that were in here before we started, I rewrote one of these last night because I didn't want to give you a very inefficient script. And I'll kind of talk about what a script is and how it interfaces with a spreadsheet here in a minute. And that will make a little bit more sense. So the transportation request, if you heard the slam yesterday, you understand what that does. You may not understand exactly how it works, but basically it automates a request for transportation. Automatically creates a calendar event, puts the location on the calendar event, the start time, the end time, who's requesting, sends an email to their supervisor to approve it, sends an email to the campus director once it's approved. Which reminds me, if I watch this later, I need to go back into that script and put it so it doesn't come to me, but actually goes to the campus director. Because I went in and modified that script yesterday because I want to show you guys that I'd get an email and y'all didn't even get to see that. But it did come to me about 5 minutes after I sat down. Professional development transcript. I know when I was at Putnam City, we had one person and about half of her job was tracking professional development that teachers did. I hate to say this because like we talk about robots taking human jobs, but this script would literally take half of her job away because this one is a form, again, that instructors go and say, I attended this professional development, and it creates a transcript. It adds them as a viewer to that transcript, that Google Doc, and it moves it into a folder that their supervisor has access to. So it adds them as a viewer, not as an editor. So they can't go back and say, well, no, I said I was there for 1 hour, but I was really there for 8 hours. So those are the kinds of things that it can do. The progress reports, I say multi-program because our electrical program is using it, our cosmetology program is using it, our auto service is using a different one, our auto collision is using it. So we're slowly like bleeding into our programs, and we're making this thing work exactly like they want it to because it's a Google Doc, it's a Google spreadsheet that that they go and use as an online gradebook, and then they run the script and it creates progress reports. And that's the one that I'm going to show you kind of in depth here in a minute. The other one that I really like that I had kind of forgotten about is a daily work log. And students get onto a form. You see the pattern here? Students get onto a form, they say what they did, they rate their level of understanding. It feeds into a spreadsheet. The teacher goes in, highlights a row and grades that row, and then clicks grade in the custom menu. And it moves that information from the front page, from the front sheet of the spreadsheet, and moves it over to their specific spreadsheet. And it sends an email to the students saying, this is what your daily grade was today. So those students, every time Afton goes in and grades, her students are getting an email every time she clicks and runs that script, which is a really nice little quick feedback for students to say, hey, mom and dad, look, this is how I did today in class, what I did, comments from the teacher, whatever. So that's my current works in progress right now. So let's get down to the nitty gritty of the scripts. And before we do that, are there any questions? I get to talking so fast, I forget to ask for questions. And I won't wait the prerequisite 21 seconds required by research.
Do you do any integration with if, this, and that?
I haven't yet. I have not yet. But that's another piece.
If you love this type of stuff.
Yes. Oh, now I personally do. In fact, I got an email yesterday from If This Then That, because every time I favorite a tweet, it modifies a note in Evernote, and it said your hourly limit has been exceeded. We're stopping this from running until tomorrow. So I've already favorited like 30 in an hour today, so I'm sure I've got that email again. So yes, I love If This Then That. I think of it as my robot minions on the interwebs that are doing my bidding for me. And that's kind of how I think about these scripts.
Where do you put little bits with it?
Say that again?
So wait till you put little bits with it. You take your coffee pot remote control. And
Yes.
I mean, all of it, this and that.
Yes, I have I'm moving to Smart Things is what I'm working on at my house. So I can open my garage door and turn on the lights. And yeah, awesome. Very cool. Okay, so what is a script? A script is something that you run within Google. There's about 3 different ways to do a script. You have standalone scripts, which run standalone. You actually go into the script and click run, or you have it run every hour. It's a time-based script, or you can manually click run. You have web apps that run, and I don't know anything about web apps or standalone scripts. I haven't done that. The last option is a script that is bound to a spreadsheet or a Google Doc. And those are the ones that I have done so far. I didn't really give this disclaimer at the beginning, but I'm a learner. I'm very, very new to doing this. I didn't know anything about JavaScript 6 months ago. Nothing at all about JavaScript 6 months ago. So I know that you do not simply learn JavaScript, but I mean, if you go to codeacademy.com, you can take their JavaScript course. And I took this screenshot yesterday. This is how far I've gotten in Code Academy's JavaScript course. I'm about 50% of the way through, and I've already told you some of the cool things that I've been able to accomplish. And please don't hear this as a yay me kind of thing. This is a yay, look at the cool things you can do, that any of us can do with some persistence and enough time. I'll admit, I go home after work and I'm like, oh, I gotta figure this script out. I can't put this away until I figure out how to make this work. So it is a little bit like learning a foreign language. I think it's slightly easier, or it could be harder depending on how you're bent. I'm kind of at the point right now where I can ask where the bathroom is and order a drink, but I can't go very much beyond that. However, with a computer, punctuation and sentence structure are exceptionally important, because you can use a run-on sentence in Spanish and still get your beer, but your script will not work if it's not punctuated correctly and if you don't tell it exactly what you want it to do. So it's a little less forgiving than learning a foreign language, honestly. I hope you guys like my little meme there. I thought it was kind of funny. So what can scripts do? Well, it can integrate all of the apps. Everything that Google has, there is some sort of script that will run. And I'm not talking about like a ready-made script. I'm talking about you can make this do pretty much whatever you want it to do. So all of those, but my favorite one really is spreadsheets. I love using this in conjunction with spreadsheets and forms. You can probably already tell that based on what I've talked about. And I kind of look at it as it can automate all the things, because we're just barely not even tapping the potential of the kinds of things that this can automate at Canadian Valley. I think we're going to continue to add more and more and more. I made the transportation coordinator's job a whole lot easier with that one thing that we did. So where are the scripts? One place that you can find them is if you're in your spreadsheet and you click the tools, that little script editor. That kind of makes sense probably. If you open that script editor, it will take you to the code page, and there will be like the beginnings of a script there. There will be a function and a place for you to fill in the blanks, basically. The other place that they are is you can go to script.google.com, and this is where if you were writing a standalone script or if you were beginning to do a web app, then this is where you would go to just write a script. But this is what it would look like. See that little function, my function, parentheses, parentheses, bracket, bracket. That's the beginning of the script. So how about an example? So this is an example of a script. I've got the script on the left side, and then I have what it looks like when it's running on the screen on the right side. So this is a custom menu script. It's part of my progress report scripts. And let me zoom in on this over here just a little bit. I know that gets a little blurry, but you can probably read what it says. So we'll start at the top and work our way through a little bit of this. Spreadsheet app, we're working in spreadsheets, so we need to tell it use the spreadsheet app. What do we want it to do? We want it to create a menu. What do we want that menu to be called? Progress reports. Then we want a submenu for all students. Now I'll give a disclaimer, I've changed this. So it used to be all students, and then I had another submenu that was for a single student where you could highlight a row in the gradebook and just run a progress report for that one student. I've taken that out because I'm in the middle of reworking the script, and I haven't gone back in and fixed that yet. So under that all students, what do we want? Well, we want a first week, 9 weeks progress report, and we want it to run which function? Progress report 1 ES, which is entire sheet is what ES stands for. All of these things that are up there in red are things that I made up. Like I tell it what I want the script to say, basically, is what that means. All the things in red are the things that it is being told to do that are modifiable by me. Everything that's in black is pretty much standard stuff. That's scripting language straight from the Google script information. So what does that look like? Well, it looks like a progress report menu there at the top. And I'm trying out my new little tools here. Oops, that's not what I wanted. So I've got a progress report menu. I've got all students. I've got a first 9 weeks progress report. And if I click that, it would actually run, hang on. Shoot. It would actually run the script if I clicked on first 9 weeks report, if I was in that spreadsheet. So notice things like punctuation, familiar words, basic sentence structure. This should just give you a little bit of an idea of what scripts look like. You have lines of code, which are analogous to sentences, and it has punctuation. One of the really nice things about Google Scripts is when you're typing in this, once you say like, for instance, if I did, well, this is not a good example. I'll show you on the next screen. Okay, so for instance, at the very top, this is actually the progress report script that runs the progress report itself. So at the top, I'm saying make a variable called SS, which is the spreadsheet. Use the spreadsheet app, dot, and if I'm typing that, if I type spreadsheet app, dot, it will open up a little window that has all of the things that I could possibly use there. Like what are all of my options that I could make the spreadsheet app do? One of those is get active spreadsheet. So it's saying, get the spreadsheet that is active right now, the one that I've clicked on, the one that I have open, and use that spreadsheet for everything that we're going to do. Then the very next one, get the sheet and get it by name. And what's the name of the sheet it needs to get? Well, in my progress report, in those grade books, we have a first 9 week sheet, second 9 week sheet, and so on. But they feed into a cumulative grade. So it doesn't matter if I'm on the fourth 9 weeks sheet in my spreadsheet, it's going to make cumulative grades the active sheet where it's going to get the information from. So I have to tell it exactly what to do. If I don't, it's going to try and do this from the fourth 9 week sheet, and it's going to be super confused. And then we go on down through there, and these next 2 lines. Oh, hello. Sorry. Not used to being able to zoom in like that. Okay, so the next two lines, get last column, that's just a command that says, what's the last column? Basically, how many columns are there in here? The next one is get last rows. How many rows are there? Because if you've got a form, you may only have 3 rows in there right now. Well, I want it to know how many rows there are when I run this script. So those are things that are useful. And you can see right there in the very next one, using the sheet, cumulative grades, that's from back in that second row, get all of the values starting with cell 1-1, which would be A1. Starting with cell A1, get all of the values. And how many values do I want it to get? I want it to get all of them there for the whole sheet. That's why I said right before that, get the last column, get the last row. So it would know, doesn't matter how big my spreadsheet is, how many people have come in and submitted, it knows to get all of the values in the whole spreadsheet. So those are the kinds of things that you have to tell it to do. So when it gets these values, one of the different things about this get values, if it has an S on it, it's putting things into an array. I have any math teachers in here? One. So I have one math teacher that probably already understands what an array is. So you have an array which could be 2-dimensional. So it's like you have value 1, 1, value 1, 2, value 1, 3, and then you have value 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, and so on. We'll see an example of that here in a minute. Hopefully you'll understand arrays better than I did when I started, because it's been in the last month that I've begun to understand what an array is and how to make these scripts so much better. If you can learn what arrays are and how they work, that's a big thing to learn. So my array is called values. That's an array. That's not just a variable, not a single value variable. It's a collection of values. And so I want it to do something for a number of times based on how long my array is, kind of like I want it to get all the values in the sheet, how many columns, how many rows. So I tell it v-length is equal to the length of the array values. That's what I'm doing in the next one. And I'm going to try not to get too bogged down in the technical part of this, because I can't teach you what I've learned in 6 months in 60 minutes.
Sorry.
No question.
Okay, so you've been doing this online course for 6 months, like roughly, like how much, obviously you're not doing it like 8 hours a day. So like how much outside of work time are you spending?
They've actually given me some autonomy at Canadian Valley to do a lot of this at work, because I'm not doing it 8 hours a day, technically, because I'm on a 7.5-hour contract, but that's another story. Career tech people, it's where it's at. There have been several days of the week that I would work on these things. It really depends on.
So you're like infinite, like what, when I'm looking at some of these things and I'm hearing you talk, I have a very little knowledge, let me just throw it
It's
out there.
deep technical.
You're like infinite campus, you just said you don't have it.
Right.
You're like that
Right.
for Canadian Valley.
Yes.
And for me, so, but when you're talking about this, what I'm hearing, like I just made a spreadsheet from Excel
Right.
for our district
Right.
with the help of the assistant principal, where teachers, even though they've put now a temporary hold on it, but because our teachers are freaking out about slow, okay? So we just made a spreadsheet where they could put in the first score, the second score, and it would come up with the yes or no, either they did or didn't need it.
Right.
So
Conditional formatting,
because
sure.
non-math teachers were freaking out about figuring out the format.
Right.
So we put those in there.
Right. Absolutely.
But you could have made a form
Yes.
or a sheet
Yes.
where they could have put that data
Yes.
in, and it would have, our report was decent, but it
Yes.
wasn't great.
Right.
It had a limit to how many kids you could put in each
Uh-huh.
grade,
Yep.
where this would not have a limit.
Correct.
So you could have made $1 billion, I'm just telling you.
I know. I'm telling you. And I'm giving you guys this for free today, okay? And I'll be, within reason, I'll be your tech support. I'll help you. But I know how to read Google Scripts documentation, which I'm going to give you a link to. I'm working on the JavaScript course, but I'm only 50% through.
So if your job did not allow you the time to take this course during work, realistically, if you're coming home and doing it a couple of nights a week, how long do you think it would have taken you to get where you are right now?
Probably twice as long.
So about a year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good. Stacy wants to add something.
I sit across from Jody, we share that job. he does all the scripting, and I just say, oh yeah, Jody can make that for you.
Yeah.
And so.
Stacy is selling me to other people.
I have the easy side. So I see what he
Yes.
does. And your question is, he doesn't ever spend a whole day just doing Code Academy.
I'm just trying to figure out if I want to do this at
Right.
night, how long it would, what am I looking at?
The Code Academy part of it, the learning part of it, honestly, I would say you could do in a few weeks.
Yeah, oh yeah, you could work to the point that I am in Code Academy. You could just work through Code Academy and do that portion of it in a couple of weeks and then start out with something small.
But the way our projects go is, someone will approach us and say, this is what I want to do, and we say, sure. And then
we dive in the deep end of the pool and
Right.
go, holy crap, we're way over our heads.
so he's learning big chunks at a time
Yeah.
in the scope of a project,
Right.
Okay,
which would be different than what you're talking about.
okay.
Like you can learn to do some things like emailing the results of a form or something like that, or I can help you put together a script because I've already done it. I can help get some things together for you, or you share a script with me and say, what does this need to be fixed? And I can look at it in a few minutes and say, here's the problem. So I mean, we can all go together and do a consortium and make $1 billion off of this, no joke, by using Google Apps, for real. That's a great question.
I'm in for $1 billion too.
Yeah, anybody else in for $1 billion? Okay, fantastic. Okay, so,
Isn't that what you do?
yeah, oh yeah, it does, in Oklahoma it does. So kind of for the rest of this script, and you can see this script live if you go to the for training in scripting resources and that folder. If you go to for training gradebook and go to the script editor, which is under the tools menu, you can see this script. I would ask that you not change and modify anything. And if you can't see that, I may have just given you view rights, so we'll work on that. I'll get that figured out. But what I've done for the rest of this script is the gold line there after the break, it tells you what the next thing does. So basically this next little thing goes through and it finds out where do I start looking for students. Does that make sense? Okay, so all of that to say, that's what those next 3 lines of code do.
You should explain to them the numbering system on a spreadsheet.
Oh, okay, so numbering system on a spreadsheet. You've got like A1, like row, or you've got column 1, row A, or whatever, whichever way it is. Column A, row 1, I don't know. Well, this actually looks at it when it does an array. There's a row 0. So everything is off by 1 when you go from arrays to spreadsheets, which is kind of screwy. So that's been a really difficult thing for me to wrap my brain around. It is really important to know because you'll be off by 1 value all the time, but I'm going to show you a tool here in a minute that's built into Google Scripts that'll help you wrap your brain around that really quickly. Okay, so these are all variables. Oops. These are all variables that are student demographic data. I need their last name and I need to tell it which part of the array is the last name. I need the first name. Notice that second line right there. If that is blank, I want my script to stop running because it's like a redundant, it's like a double safety switch. I've told this how many times it's going to run based on how long the array is, but if it comes across and the last name is blank, I want it to go ahead and stop. Otherwise, I'm wasting time and making stuff that are blank. So I'm trying to learn, and I'm learning this, how to build in some redundancy. I'm trying to learn how can I scale this from what the spreadsheet looks like now and give it to you guys and you change it and it not change the script. You want to have to change your spreadsheet, not your script. Trust me on that one. Because you can see how many lines this is. So this goes through and this tells it which values. I've got one thing right here where one of the weird things about the date, it doesn't matter what you're viewing on the spreadsheet. If you're viewing like 1/1/2015, if you output that into a document, it's going to be 01 January 2015 000 Greenwich Mean Time. Like, I don't want that date format, so I've told it to format it as month, day, year. And depending on whether the M is capital, it's going to do one thing. Whether the M is lowercase, it's going to do another thing. So there's a lot of little nuances like that to learn that have taken me 6 months to figure out. Okay, so how do we know what the values are without running the script to see if this is going to break? I talk a little bit at the end about debugging, and I'll show you how to do that. But remember, I told you that it's going to make an array called values, and it's going to put it in position 0, position 1, position 2, position 3, position 4. So 4, 0, 4, 1, 4, 2, 4, 3, and so on. So I have student 1, first name 1. He's a first-year student. He lives at this address. He lives in Yukon and Oklahoma and so on. So this is how I'm kind of going from the array and putting those into the variables. The next time the script runs through the loop, it's going to go to number 5 because that's the next student, which is going to be student 1, first name 2, and so on. Did I lose you right there? Because conceptually, I know this is hard to wrap your brain around. This is the technical part of it. Now, I'm showing you how those things from this array have been plugged into these variables on the left side of the screen. So I'm looking at, well, what was the value for v length? Well, there are 40 things in that array. That value's length is 40 things long. The first row that it's going to start looking at is row 4. The last name is, and so on. So I've kind of translated this now from being in my array to being plugged in as those variables. Couple of things that you need to know. Now we're moving on to the next section of the script. Okay. One of the things that you need to understand about Google is, you know how your folders and your documents and all of that, they have their own specific web address? Well, only the last portion is different. If you need to know a document ID, say for your template document that you're going to create all other subsequent documents from, you're looking for everything between, let's zoom in on this. I just learned how to zoom this yesterday, so I'm pretty crappy at it. Everything between those last 2 forward slashes, before edit and after D. That's my document ID. That's how I would find that and tell it where to get that from. Now, I actually manually go and put this into my spreadsheet and make that part of my array so I can say, okay, my document ID is always going to be found in this place in the array. Same thing with where I'm going to put it. These have just in the last 2 weeks gotten exponentially longer. They used to be about 10 characters and now they're about 40 characters long. This is the folder where I'm going to move this progress report once it's made, because I don't want it just sitting on my drive. That's not helping my teachers out. When we run this script, it needs to go into a folder they have access to. So I'm going to have to tell them where to put it, tell the script where to put it, and I'll show you what that looks like here in just a second. So that's what's happening down here. I'm putting these values manually into my spreadsheet, which are going to go into my array. And I've got target folder 1, which is first 9 weeks, target folder. Doc template 1, which is first 9 weeks template for progress reports. And I'm going to do things like I'm going to say use the Drive app and get the folder by ID. That's why I got this folder ID up here. So target folder now is what this value was. Copy ID. Get a file by ID, make a copy, and call it something, which I previously said what the name variable is going to be called, which is a combination of the first name and the last name, and I told it to do that. So I'm having to tell the script everything to do. When I make a copy, it's going to be called this, and where's it going to be created? And then, oops, shoot, sorry. And then I tell it what to do. This is where I'm actually telling it to do something. Rather than just assigning variables, I'm telling it to copy the document. In the copy document, get the header and copy that, which that's probably a redundant line of code. I probably don't actually need that. So now this is the point where we go, okay, what is it actually doing? So to help you understand what we are doing here is we have this, and I don't know why my screen's cut off. It's because I'm zoomed in. We have this is what my template document looks like, and I see that I have like chevrons, laying down chevrons, greater than, less than signs. Those are my dummy variables. And what's going to happen with this part of the script, you can probably tell if you read the first line of script, copy body dot. So in copy body, in the body of the copy document that I made, replace the text. What text do I replace? Last name. And what do I replace it with? Whatever the variable last name is. And then it goes to the next line, and it does this for every value on my template. So this is the part where it actually does something. Does that sort of make sense? I know that the creating and where it goes and all that is like, that's really bogged down. Yes, sir.
So this is doing, again, she mentioned it, so this is doing a lot of stuff that we do that we don't know we're doing it when we're working with access and.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So your spreadsheet is your database. That's a great conceptual way to think about this. Your spreadsheet is the database where your student information is kept. And this script is something that runs when you say, make progress reports for me from PowerSchool. This is exactly what it's doing. It has a template that's a branded document. I don't show you the branding on the top, but I put our logo here in the top. Now here's one of the little things that really that's a time eater for stuff like this. We have windowed envelopes. So I have to make this into a Google Doc. Then I have another script that runs that converts it from a Google Doc to a PDF, but it doesn't exactly convert it right. So I have to figure out how to get the thing to line up and then work backwards so I can make my template fit so my end product lines up in the window. And that seems like something that would be so easy, but it is not. Trust me on that one. I think I have it right because we mailed progress reports out last week, and it was put it in the folding machine and stuff the envelopes, and they ran it through the mail and they worked great. But it's taken me a while to get there. I'm not telling you need to build an SIS for your student information system for your school or a new grade book. I'm just using that as an example of what we're doing with it. So we go from this to this. All of the values that's replaced, the last name, first name, all this stuff has been replaced. Now, one thing that you'll notice, look at this part right here. See, it says type of student. If I said replace the body of type of student with type of student and I don't have a value for type of student, then it replaces it with a blank, which is a really nice feature. Instead of leaving that greater than, or less than type of student, greater than. It doesn't leave that in there. It actually replaces it with a blank value, which is really nice. But the way that we've done this is we have it where it tells the students category grades. It tells the class average for those categories so they can see how they compare against everybody else. And it has their attendance in there as well. I'll pause for questions before we look at the last piece.
So you're talking about it puts in a blank. Is that, can we see where you do that in the script, or is that something like?
It's whatever value I have for year of student right here. If my script goes and says, okay, what's the value for year of student, and it's nothing, it puts nothing in there. It just deletes that because it's literally replacing it with the value that it is, which is nothing. Make sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Other questions? So what are we going to do at the very end? The last little pieces of this particular one is we're going to open the Drive app. We're going to get the file that we just made, which that's why we called it copy ID, because I'm going to get file by ID, and it's going to put in the target folder. So it's going to go look at what the value of target folder is, and it's going to add file. Well, which file is it going to add? It's going to add file. Well, which file is that? It's this one right here, which we just went and got this file. So it's like you look and you go back like 4 steps, and it seems like a real clunky way to do it, but it's the nature of JavaScript. Like you're seeing the pared down efficient version. You do not even want to have seen what the other version looked like.
Is it somewhat color coded, like things that are in blue, are they kind of like live moving? Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, that's a great question. So one of the ways that I can troubleshoot my script is when I go and I've done a test progress report, and I go, well, it didn't replace sending school. It still left it there. Well, that's because if sending school were black, that's telling me sending school is not identified as a variable in the top part of my script, in the part before that.
In the original.
Exactly. So those are the little things that you just kind of intuitively or contextually pick up as you do this. You're like, if I look through when I'm copying, replacing text, if I see something that's black that I think should be in blue because everything else is, then there's probably a problem there. And I'll show you how to troubleshoot that here in just a second. How are we doing on time? Oh, not good. Okay, so what do we do with it? And then the last thing we want to do, you don't want, the thing about Drive is that documents can be in more than one place. It can be in your Drive app, in your Drive folder, and it can be in another folder. Well, I don't want that left in my Drive folder. So that last command says remove file from my Drive. Because I don't want it sitting in my, when I open my Drive, I want to see folders. I don't want to see a bunch of progress reports. Trust me. So where do I start? I've given you some resources here. The Google Apps script, developers.google.com apps-script. That's all of the documentation. And if you look on the left-hand side of that page, it says classes. So it'll say like Drive app, spreadsheet app, Gmail app, all of those different things that you can do with those. Like you can go in the Drive app and get viewers for a particular file. If you wanted to do something, like give them the ability to do something, and you want it to be the same people as that can view this file. You know what I'm saying? So there's no way I could even mention all of the things. The other thing I would do is I would definitely recommend at least doing 50% of the JavaScript Code Academy course, which is totally free. Code School is another good one. You can actually earn badges on Code School, and you can earn badges on Code Academy. You just can't take them into your Mozilla Open Badges backpack yet. I keep harassing them about that. So, but I do recommend doing that because conceptually it will help you understand this. But the big piece, I'm going to repeat this because the question was really good, and when I made this connection in my brain, it was good. Your spreadsheet is your database where you have the information, and the script is what does something with that information. So conceptually understanding that is a big deal and can really create a whole lot more, get you in over your head with your district, because we're implementing a new student information system, and guess who's going to be doing some programming on that? Yeah. Really.
Do you do most of yours in like the Google Drive stuff, or do you do it in Excel and upload?
Oh no, we do it all in Drive.
Okay.
The only thing we did in Excel was we had a teacher who created the original gradebook, which I'll show you in a minute. I'll show you what it looks like in Google. And we put it into Google, and we have not opened that file again.
Okay, so there's no functional limitations within.
No. Well, that's not true. Between Sheets and Excel, yes, there are functional limitations, but we've either been willing to not worry about that. As far as functions, specifically functions, I've really had a hard time finding them. There's just different ways of doing it, but am I right, Stacey?
Yeah.
I mean,
Because I
the
was,
sum product, sum if, you know, if error, all of those kinds of things that you can do in Excel, you can do it in Google Sheets. Yes, sir.
I just want to say, you know, we were all laughing earlier when we were talking about the 70s and all, but I would just like to know how much money you're saving.
I wish I knew that too.
Over those of our, you know, if we could all get on this.
Well-
It's gonna put power schools and stuff out of business.
Well, here's the thing. Somebody asked me that. She said, "Did I hear you say that you guys don't use Power School or anything like that?" Here's the thing. This is something that we have like 25 instructors on our campus, and we work for the campus. We don't work for Canadian Valley, the district. We work for the El Reno campus. So this is not district-wide, and we're not even campus-wide. And it's us like troubleshooting regularly. We're not even to beta testing yet. We're in alpha testing.
Well, but that's even
So-
problem with some of the other places, like if you're not using Infant Campus or Power School, some of the bigger
Right.
companies, if you're like in a smaller district.
Yes.
I can't remember the names of them because I have nightmares about it.
Yes.
And because when you go to call and ask questions, you know, it's like, really, we're just gonna ask that you not call anymore. You're gonna have to call this one specific person because nobody else knows how to answer your question.
Right.
I'm not even that smart.
Right.
So I don't feel like enough people have this background, even within those companies.
Right.
To be
So.
able to do what needs to be done.
So here's the analogy for me that I hope that you guys will go out of here, and that's why I said I want you to be a noob and not a noob. I hope that you'll go out of here today thinking, I just learned how to fix and build my car while I'm driving it, because we literally are driving the car and we're fixing it, not on a daily basis. Around progress report time, it's a little stressful for me, because I don't have all the bugs worked out of that, and I got to make sure electrical script works and Cosmos script works, because there's just a little bit of difference. But I'm learning the hard way how to be able to scale this up to at least a campus. I would never say, tell your district to get rid of Power School. This is just my example because this is where I started.
Right,
So-
and you asked how much money is being saved for us. I think the more important part for us is the time
Yeah,
that we're saving for our instructors, because
Yeah,
they were using a dysfunctional gradebook.
right.
that wasn't calculating
Didn't calculate
correctly.
correctly, and none of them really realized that because they hadn't written that spreadsheet. And so once we took this project on and started fixing those things, and then the progress reports that he's showing you became so much more functional, because before their progress report was, are they passing and are they showing up, right?
And they were handwritten.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now their progress report is showing
I didn't say
their averages in all the categories, and then there's a place for comments, like your standards, Infinite Campus or Power
like what's
School grade
expected,
level.
yeah, in this day and age.
And then it also shows, because we have a lot of, our specialty programs have special certifications. So it also includes student certifications in lots of areas.
So you can see right here, has this student passed the OK Tech Residential Electrician's Assistant? No, he has not yet. But that's something we just change a value in the spreadsheet, and when we print the progress report, then it changes to yes. Okay, so real quick, this is how I learned. I started Frankenscripting, which is by going to Stack Overflow and reading questions people had asked and having just enough knowledge to say, okay, this part of the script is doing this. So if I take this and copy and paste it into my script, then my script should do that. And I built monsters, literally, that have been monsters sometimes, that are beginning to, like, there have been some days when I feel like it's alive because it's beginning to work slowly. So here's another link to the overview of app scripts. That's great information. You can get a lot of information there, but Stack Overflow is a really, really good. So let me show you debug, and let me show you that live real quick.
While he's pulling that up, I would say if you're gonna start with scripts, you've never done them before, like you said, start with code typing and then pick a small project,
Yes.
because.
Email the results of a form to somebody. Don't do a progress report.
Yeah, we jumped into the deep end on some, but start with something small and figure out the bugs and how it works there. So then you're dealing with, 20 lines of code
Right.
versus 100.
Or 300. Yeah. Okay, so this is the script that I showed you guys, and I don't want to actually run this script live I want to run part of this script and see what's happening in the script. So if I click on a line of code, say this line right here, if I click the debug menu, it's only going to run to that line of code. If I would have known that from day one, I was like running scripts and running, and I'm like, why is it breaking? I don't understand. And I didn't understand the debug function. So this right here that I'm giving you is like the gold of this whole session. So if I click debug, and you people that are IT guys, you're probably like, well, duh, of course there's a debug. Well, I didn't know what that meant. So here's what this means. If you look here, v-length was what I ran through. I should be able to pull this down because I want to see my, there we go. So you can see that it highlighted that line, so it ran through that part right there. I'm going to pull this back up. And it went and got all the values. Let me move these things over where we can see this a little bit. So it's telling me this is an array. So these are all the values that it got. So in the very first column of my spreadsheet, it's numbered 0 through 77. And I did that on purpose because I want to be able to look at that and tell. Again, this is another row of my spreadsheet, another row, until right here at row 4, I actually start getting into students. And I'm looking at 4, 0, 4, 1, and it's telling me what values are in those parts of the array and so on. So let me go just a little bit further here. Let me debug a little bit more. And so I'm gonna have it stop here, and I'm gonna click play. So run the next part of the script. So now it's debugged and it's stopped there. Let me move this back up, and I'm going to collapse my values. And you can see now that I have a number, I have a value in for v-length, and I have a value in for row, but I don't have a value for last name. So let's just go just a little bit more, and let's go through sending school and see what it does. So it's going to run. And see how it just plugged values in there because I'm letting it run through that part of the script, but it stopped at sending school. If you have an undefined value, that's when your scripts get an error. So this is the way that you can go through and see, where am I going to have errors? What do I need to fix? So that's the gold right there. I saved the gold for the end of this. I hope that was okay. Let me see what else I've got here.
Can you click 2 spots on that and have it like start with 8 and end somewhere else if you've already debugged the top half?
Yes, that's actually what I was doing. So if I click here and I click continue, or I can undo this and I can start over. Like I can take all the red dots off and have one red dot down here. So I can run from here to here, or I can start back at the beginning and run the whole thing to here. So you have some options there. But this clicking the red dot that's for your debugging and tells you run the script to here. Good question. So let me see where else I want to go here. Not there. So here's where you may be today. You may be here going, hey, look what scripts can do. But next week you may be like, write your first Google script and you have an unterminated loop and it crashes your browser. So I told you I love memes. Granny discovers the internet and First Day on the Internet Kid are 2 of my favorites. There is a recording to this session, and you can get to that from here, have a link to that. And do you feel this way? Yeah, I do after talking about it. I'm not going to lie to you. So let me just real quick, in the last 7 minutes or so that we have, let me show you this. This is what our spreadsheet looks like. And so we have, if you can see here at the bottom, first 9 weeks. This is our grade book that we've created, and it looks like a pen and paper grade book. We did that on purpose because that's what we started with. And I know we have a misspelling there. I've got to fix that. So you guys can fix that. Second 9 weeks and so on. So you actually have a place because we have students that are all day, they can actually be absent twice. That's why we have an AM and PM. That could be changed. But the main thing is all of those values feed here into the cumulative grade sheet, cumulative grade sheet. And so we have like career readiness stuff, we have certifications. Here's my first 9 weeks value. I learned that it was much easier to give a link to my instructors so they can go straight to their progress reports folder within the sheet. So this takes them directly to that folder. And if you'll notice over here, the target folder for the first 9 weeks would be here, and my script is written so that my array knows where to look for that target folder. Same thing for my template. So I'm putting those values in here manually. Second 9 weeks, third 9 weeks. You can see some of these have values and some don't. This was a live grade book that I removed student information from to show you guys that we're like implementing. This is one of my programs right here. This is his grade book. Well, it's a copy of his grade book. And so as it goes on, what questions do you guys have? What do you want to know about it? This can be, with some work and time, this kind of thing. I kind of hate that I use the progress report example because probably none of you are going to go make a grade book for your district or even your classroom. But the transportation.
But maybe you sell
Can you show that?
t-shirts.
Is that what you're doing?
and
You want to
have
see the
somebody
transportation
that
script?
generates,
Okay.
you know, a sales receipt for yearbooks. Yeah, to get let them shake.
Well, I get the people that and I understand it's more than that's it.
Okay, so in the transportation request, here's my form. Here's my responses. Maybe.
Hey, I do have a question, and it's, I've been looking for it for the last 2 days. Can you tell me what extension is that you spotlight that stuff?
It's called Mouse Pose. It's a $10 add-on to your Mac, and it's awesome.
So you got an answer for my extension. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I haven't yet taken it, but I don't like it.
Sorry, I thought I could get to it from there, but I'm not going to fool with that. Oops, I'm in the wrong.
I thought somebody said they're gonna be one of the sessions that was
Well, he said it was going, he said it was coming out.
Oh, okay.
So it wouldn't, it would be like, I don't know, 5 weeks or something. But his guy is writing the script right
Endless
now.
what you can generate once you start doing.
Okay, so here's what my transportation request looks like, and I'll show you what the script itself looks like because you probably don't care about the form because you guys know how to do a form. This one's actually a little bit more complicated, but I haven't rewritten this yet. But this is one that you could probably take and pretty easily modify, and we could tweak that script together. I could help you with that because this really could make things a whole lot easier. So let's just look at this real quick. This part is where I'm getting the values. This part is where I'm saying if they choose bus, then you need to create the event on this bus calendar. Or if they choose van, put it on this calendar and so on. And this actually gets the calendar, creates the event, and then it emails them and says, please email so-and-so and copy in so-and-so if you would like to override this approval. Yes. 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 Yes, absolutely. Right. Bingo. And you can see that this has multiple script files right here. One tells one what to do, tells the other what to do. But these are all accessible to you guys through that tools script editor menu from the responses.
Don't forget to.
Hey, can I ask some people a little bit of help? We need to get 25 seats in this room, the next room, and the room next door. Would a couple people help me carry a desk across the hall? Because we kind of loaded up this room.
Thank you, Dr. Cullen. Thank you.
Sorry.